Well, we're going to talk, and I'm going to be open. So pay attention, trolls, because y'all want to know so much about me. I'm about to give you a little bit of an inside look that I normally don't do. What I come on here to talk about is First Nations, two-spirited people, and people that don't seem to understand that there are blonde-haired Indians, First Nations people. Tom Petty is a good example of that. His grandmother is full-blooded Cree or Crow, or not Cree, Cherokee or Crow, I'm not sure. And he's the only blonde-haired person in his family. We come in all shapes, size, and colors. But somebody who is pure to the blood, even us light-skinned people can identify as Elvis Presley, Lisa Marie Presley. Elvis Presley's got me thinking about all this. So you know that Elvis Presley is like, he's First Nations, he's Native American all the way. And how I classify that how I can classify that is First Nations people. If you've got the DNA of a First Nations person, it's a very unique DNA, and not everybody in the world has it. And I'm not an expert on it, but it's got something to do with 15,000 years ago, up near in the Siberian Peninsula, there were a group of people that that got trapped due to ice freezing, and they couldn't get back to the mainland. And those people lived there for 15,000 years amongst themselves. And then when they were able, hi TNN, to get out to start to branch out in the world, that is when the First Nations DNA started spreading out through the world. And so I have that DNA, and every First Nations person that you know has that DNA. But, oh, hi, Troll Patrol, how's it going? So, and Troll Patrol here is a racist, and I'll tell you why. She is using the picture of a 16-year-old girl that is First Nations, and she thinks she's pissing me off. So, don't you gotta go lick Dar's clit? Just saying. So anyway, Troll Patrol is a very small-minded person. But anyway, we'll forget about her. So you either shut up, Troll Patrol, or I'm going to get rid of you. You trolls either shut up or I'm going to get rid of you. Like, get an education. It might be good for you. So anyway, that is when it branched out into the rest of the world. And there are certain things that, I can't always, but I can identify when I see a person of the blood. So Elvis Presley, Tom Petty is a blonde. Bye, bitch. Tom Petty is a blonde, but yet I can tell by the way he moves, the way he holds himself. There's just little things that I can tell when I'm dealing with another First Nations person. And when you're dealing with a racist. I mean, we all do low shit, but this bitch puts up a 16-year-old that's way better looking than anybody around them. Hi, Paul. Yep, I hear you. So, this myth that a lot of people have been fed in America, that First Nations people all have dark hair and dark skin, That is just simply not true. But you either have the DNA or you don't. And there's a certain attitude that goes along with it, which is probably growing up. That comes more from growing up. So it makes me laugh when people say, oh, I'm spoiled, or I don't know what it's like to be tough. I was 16 years old when I shot my first deer and I was in a tree with a bow and arrow. So guns ain't shit. So anybody that hunts knows how difficult it is. And I didn't have any high-tech gear. Simple bow and arrow, down with that deer. So, and I can also take that deer home and I can dress that deer, which means butcher it. So, and for its meat. And I also know how to take care of its skin, which I wouldn't do that because I'm not into that. But let's say if I was to decide to go hunting, and I can hunt with any man because I'm a good tracker. And I can stay quiet for hours upon hours. I don't sport hunt. I'm not going to say I'm for it. I don't agree with it. I don't think people should be hunting for sport. Now, Elvis, at the time, Elvis, I mean, you can look at him now, and because you've got more of an education, and look back and say, that guy's First Nations. But back in the day, man, oh man, there was millions of dollars that were spent to try to keep that under wraps. Like one of the things they always like to say in the movies and all that. Well, when Elvis's dad went to jail, that his mother and him lived with the black people on the poor side of town. That's because his mother was Indian, First Nations, and that's why she lived there, because they wouldn't have accepted her on the white side of town. So, but, like I said, and they wanted to claim Elvis as a Mississippi Southern boy. Elvis was a First Nations. He was an Indian. And you can tell it. I can tell it in the way he moves, the way he looks, just his all-around attitude, which is very much like mine. If you've seen any of my old videos, you'll see that I put out a video one time of a Christmas party I have. It doesn't matter the money, the nice things you have. What matters is you open your door and invite people in. And I mean, it was nothing for me to have parties with hundreds of people at them. And I loved it on a Saturday. And there were kids and dogs and cats everywhere. That's how I grew up. Now I have a friend. Now she would be 10 years younger than me, but her sister, she has 4 or 5 sisters. And her father and mother, he's a council member. His goal, because they grew up extremely poor, you're talking back in the res on the 40s, and his dream, him and his wife, when they got married, their dream was to be able to build a home for each one of their children so that their grandmother could be close. So, and they did that, except they had no boys. Like me, they had girls. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses, 6, 7 houses, and each one, he gave the land to his daughters, and his daughters and grandchildren and great-grandchildren all live around them. And when you're like that, when you live like that, there's no fences up. There's no Karen type behavior. Oh, well, you don't raise your kids right. No, those kids run in and out of those houses. And whether you're a man or you're a woman, if that kid's in front of you, you look out for it. That's the way we are. And, this whole baby mama and baby mama drama, nobody cares. Nobody cares. And to this day on reserves, we quite often there's Black people living on reserves because they've married into our culture, and they are no different than us. That's just the way we are. We don't coddle our children. Like, we don't do that. We let our children exercise, get tons of sunshine, and we don't have an attitude like, well, don't you yell at my kid. If you're up there and your kid is in someone else's yard, someone else's house acting up, and the mother feels like telling the kid to calm down, that's on her, not me, even if I was the mother, because she's taking care of the kid. And that is why women in my culture are able to succeed and go to work and go to school so easily, even when they marry young and have children, because there's always someone around that'll look after the kids, and then you do it the same. And I always laugh because, down where I live in London, oh my God, if you don't, hi, what's next? Hi, real stats. If you don't have your dog on a leash and in your yard and picking its shit up, I mean, people have a hissy fit. Like, ugh. I don't know how many times I would come home from work and there'd be 3 or 4 dogs laying in my front yard, and only one of them was mine. And they'd go home eventually. And I didn't yell at the owner or flip out at the owner or anything like that. And if the dog was being bothersome, I'd just get on Facebook. Hey, Lori, dog's in my front yard. Can you come and pick it up? There you go. It's as simple as that. We work as a community. So it's a much more relaxed vibe when you live there. There's a much more caring vibe. There's a much more accepting vibe. So that's what I want to talk about, is the LGBT community. All right. I'm going to tell you flat out, in my culture, nobody cares who you're fucking as long as they're of age and it's consensual. So this whole gay thing and trans thing and all that crap that's going on, I don't feel it. I don't talk about it. I don't care about it. Because in my culture, now this is going back a ways. This is not current, because you got to remember, currently there's people that are assimilated with the churches and all that. And then there's still the people like me who are still in our beliefs are the creator. In our community, two-spirited people are just two-spirited people. And when you're born, back in, like, you're talking years ago, if you were born, we didn't dress our children male gender or female gender from the beginning. We let our children use their strengths, prove their strengths. And everybody dressed pretty much the same. There was none of this, oh, women dressed only in dresses and men only dressed in pants like buckskin. That's bullshit. That's all created in the movies. A two-spirited person actually holds a higher rank, kind of a high status. I'm not going to say high status, but they hold a bit, hi, Joy. They hold a bit more respect than just, the average run-of-the-mill person, because of their abilities. Because quite often two-spirited people have amazing artistic abilities. They have amazing abilities to grow things. That type of thing. They found their own way and did their own thing. They were quite often people who were the medicine men or women. And the picture I put up there is, I think that's White Crow Two-Leaf, or Two-Leaf White Crow. She's a warrior chief. So there were women that fought, there were women that hunted, and there were women that became chiefs. Now, I can tell you right now, by my personality, back in the day, I'd have been a warrior chief or a warrior. I don't think it's just my personality. I'd have been a hunter and a warrior. Do I believe in the afterlife? Yes, I believe in the afterlife, but not the way Christians believe in it. Yeah. I believe we go to descend to a different plane. That's all. We don't believe there's a hell. We think, as a matter of fact, I don't believe there's a hell. In my opinion, I think hell was simply made up to control people. That's all, to make people scared and control them. So my eldest brother, he is in Tampa, Florida. He has a very successful salon, and he's two-spirited. So, like prejudice is taught, right? Well, I've never been taught to be prejudiced against somebody for who they choose to sleep with. And as a matter of fact, it's just not in us to be like that. And that's why you can see Elvis Presley, like if he wasn't such a star and you took all his stardom and everything away, you would see he wore makeup. And you're talking 1960s and 50s. And he wore makeup. He wore feminine clothing. But yet it was all overlooked. But I'm not saying Elvis was gay. I don't think Elvis was gay at all. I just think that Elvis got a lot of his great-great-grandmother's DNA in him. Now, everybody else except for Tom Petty and his family is dark-skinned and dark-eyed, kind of like my family. Everybody's got dark skin, darker skin than me, or they've got, the dark hair, even my daughters. Not one of my daughters is as light as me, but the youngest is close. She's the lightest one out of the bunch. When the truth is, there is no agenda. It's just a word with no meaning. It's like word. I call it, this is what seems to be going on in the world. There seems to be something I call word salad going on. There's all these words being made up to shame and change conversations by using one word. So a good example of that would be, we all know what the word a Karen is. A Karen is nothing but a self-entitled bitch. That's what a Karen is. And that's, and I'll tell you right now, I've never in my lifetime said, get the manager, nor would I. I've never acted to a point where I've had to be like that. And it's just never happened. I would walk away from something like that, any sort of fight. And if a female came up to me, going like doing one of these numbers, I'd be like, fuck off, bitch, I'm out of here. I would not put up, I just wouldn't tolerate it. But that's a lot to do with my culture. And, I've had it said about me, left comments, I don't understand you, Cindy, or I don't really get you, because the reason you don't is because because the First Nations party, which is a lot of times, but I understand First Nations people and other cultures too. If I'm around a African American or Jamaican, whatever culture, now of course I'm going to struggle with that because I'm not around them. I'm not familiar with them. I know how to, and I know how to be kind, and I know how to be accepting, and I know how to be loving. So therefore, that's all you got to do. Hey, Janice. So I wanted to talk about that a bit. I have never in my entire life heard the word gay on a reservation. Never. I have never heard the word lesbian on a reservation. I've never heard the word transgender on a reservation. We just do not use that word. We just don't create that separation. There you go. And nor would I feel any different about being around any of those names, because to me they're just my homie from the res. That's all they are. And that's been that way my entire life, which a lot of people haven't had that advantage, and raised by others who are prejudiced or racist, and they themselves, they didn't realize it because they've never examined it in their head. So that's just something I wanted to talk about. Yeah, you know, you look at Elvis Presley, and if you think that guy is white, you got to be crazy. You got to be deaf, dumb, and blind. Because at the time he came out, there is nothing about him. That's why he was such an anomaly to you guys, because you guys had never seen anything like that. Well, go to a powwow. You want to see Elvis's, go to powwow. You'll see tons of guys that move like that have that look about them. Yeah. And the blue eyes come because of him being mixed. So we're all, you know, even though we are First Nations with that particular DNA in us, we're mixed, and some of us are born whatever color. But Elvis just had a great combination going. So that's kind of something I just wanted to mention to all of you. Also, too, I did want to mention that Darlene admitted in her last video, the Blue Blood video, admitted to the fact that she bullied too. And I am really hoping that she gets that it isn't everybody else's fault. She was part of it too. And that she actually, I mean, being that she's offline for been offline longer than she's been off in over a year, I'm hoping that she reevaluates her direction that she's taking her channel in. So other than that, I think that's all I wanted to talk about today, and you all have a good day, and there you go. I'll talk to you later. Bye now.